disruptive.
America that I fought for.
Weird thing to happen. Hello, one and all. Welcome to this edition of Kitz Corner. It's been a fantastic day so far. So the word is out, folks, for the first time in my lifetime, and probably the only time I'll ever get to say this. A former president has been charged guilty of boinking a porn star and then lying to the hush money. But it basically comes down to the fact that a reality star, game show host, real estate tycoon, billionaire, had marital affairs with a porn star and lied about the hush money. Because that's never happened before in the history of any politics. Or so you think. So, news broke out on NBC News saying Donald Trump has been found guilty in a historic New York hush money case. The jury's verdict is the first time a former president has been convicted of a crime. Do you think that's going to stop him? No. Do you think this has anything to do with anything? No. Is this going to bring us health care? No. So, congratulations. Enjoy the theatrics of this. But it does bring up some interesting queries to this, and I want to point this guy's little note here, because this is really fascinating. So, this guy, Murray, he says, what's happening to Trump was entirely predictable based on the patterns we've seen over the past 9 years. When I stepped back and looked into everything in totality, one thought really stands out to me, that those in power are willing to burn the entire system to the ground for someone who merely presented the slightest inconvenience to their uniparty rule. And that's exactly what Trump is accused of, because Trump governed no differently than any other politician. But the reason why the establishment hated Trump so much, why they hated this guy, even though it was Hillary Clinton's idea to get this guy into politics in the first place, is because Donald Trump is the wild card. Donald Trump was the ugly cancer sore, the ugly cold sore that exposed the system. He was the one that called out the unjust wars. He was the one that called out why we're in Syria. It was for the oil. He was the one that called out the system for what it is. And he was uncontrollable. He wasn't as controllable as someone like Mike Pence, for example, or Mitch McConnell, or Chuck Schumer, or Nancy Pelosi. But this guy, this reality star who wanted the attention, who wanted to please a bunch of people, and that's why he posed himself as the perfect populist. He was trying to please his audience, was the danger to the establishment because he blurted out things that no regular person in the uniparty would ever dare express. So it was a slight inconvenience for the ruling party. And then he goes on to say, imagine if Trump had actually been a legitimate conservative and tried to dismantle or radically reform the CIA, the FBI, the DOJ, NSA, FDA, CDC, Department of Education, enacted entitlement reform, supported an audit of the Federal Reserve, brought the troops home, closed some of our military bases overseas, vetoed corporate bailouts, vetoed bank bailouts, pardoned Julian Assange and Edward Snowden, or used the justice system to legally prosecute rampant government corruption on both sides of the aisle. This is all the stuff that they accused him of. This is all the stuff that they feared that Donald Trump was going to do. But he didn't do any of it. He did not do any of it. In fact, he sided a lot with the establishment, because if he bothered to touch any of these policies that someone like me would actually endorse, anyone to at least attempt to try this, anyone that attempts to try this will probably get the JFK assassination treatment. That's why they will never, ever, ever have someone even mention these words out in public. Because it is a threat to the oligarchy. It's a direct threat to the deep state. The deep state that's really running this entire planet. I think we all know what would happen to such person. Exactly. It would be the JFK treatment. The fact that none of these changes appear to be on this table, yet they're crucifying him and his supporters because not, and his supporters anyway, shows how far gone the system truly is. Not simply because they're actually going after a former president, but because they're going after a relatively moderate one. And isn't that something? That's an amazing point to take away from this. The fact that Donald Trump, this crazed radical in politics, was actually doing the most moderate things for the establishment. He ended up bombing Syria. He ended up throwing missiles into Syria. That's when Brian Williams congratulated him, saying that he was a president for once. They congratulated him when he gave a bailout to Wall Street. He gave a tax break to the top 1%. They congratulated him. So even the most milquetoast, quote unquote, radical, to use their language, they're still going to prosecute him. They're still going to take him down because anyone that's inconvenienced their system, anyone that is a threat to the status quo, they cannot have in presence. And to put it simply, to use this analogy, it's almost like the world is run by Shooter McGavins and Happy Gilmore stormed right into the golf course. They can't have any more Happy Gilmores ruining the country club, so they need a bunch of Shooter McGavins to trump up charges to get him off the course. And that is what is happening, folks. They can't allow Donald Trump to have another 2016 victory, just like he did the last time. They can't allow him to be a president anymore. They can't allow him in the center of politics. So they have to come up and try all these different jurisdictions, all these different convictions against him to try to silence out the competition, which is exactly what I've been saying from the get-go, that all these are political prosecutions. Every single time they try to accuse Trump of something is actually an accusation of something that they have committed, but the reason they're targeting Trump is because they need to silence their opponent. They need to silence out the guy who's inconveniently destroying the Uniparty, or at least exposing it, because that is what Donald Trump is doing. He's not doing anything to drain the swamp. Remember that? Drain the swamp, lock her up. She didn't do any of that. But he exposed the war regimes. He exposed the military-industrial complex. He exposed the deep state. He told people why we're in Syria. He told and exposed the Ukraine war. He exposed the lies of Russiagate. That's why the rest of the establishment, that's why they had to have crazed Robert De Niro scream at the top of his lungs and ruin his acting career, because they cannot have someone tarnishing the reputation, tarnishing the image of the oligarchy. And it is just amazing that they're doing everything, throwing everything but the kitchen sink at trying to silence out Donald Trump, and it's not working. In fact, the more Trump gets tried on trial, the more times that they're trying to convict him as a felon and a criminal, the more popular he's getting. He just ran a fundraiser after being convicted of this and got millions of dollars from the rest of America. Because just like they're trying to do with Donald Trump, they're also trying to do with the supporters. They're also trying to do with Stop Cop City in Atlanta. They're also trying to stop anybody that's a threat to the establishment. That is the whole purpose of this. That is what people are finally witnessing. That it's not just Trump that is the center of this. It's about the fact that it's us versus them. It's the establishment clamping down on its opponents, clamping down on people that step outside of the norms, outside of the line, that are inconvenient to the uniparty rule. And that's how you know that all this is complete BS. I knew it was complete BS from the start. And I'm no fan of Trump myself. I've never been a fan of Trump since I knew about Trump. But I knew that this is complete crap from the get-go. I know that they're trying to justify changing the laws, screwing over the Justice Department, and weaponizing the Justice Department. Things that they said Donald Trump was going to do. Joe Biden is doing that to silence out his opponent. Because people are inconveniently a threat to the establishment, and they need to silence those people out. And before it's too late. And isn't it so convenient that we're talking about all this in 2024, an election year, instead of how many years ago that incident where Donald Trump banged Stormy Daniels? That was back in what, 2005, 2006? Isn't it amazing that we're talking about in an election year? All of a sudden, now we have to talk about this porn star and the hush money that apparently, I guess, again, no one in Congress, no one in politics has ever been accused of. It's a political hit job from the get-go, and I'm saying that as someone that's not a fan of Trump myself.